Was the largest comeback in postseason history in Game 2. Over the final 19 minutes, 30 seconds, the Clippers outscored the Dubs 72-37, including plus 20 alone off turnovers in that span. Afterward, Lou Williams tried to make sense of it all with Kristen Ledlow.
Considering the emotional toll, I would imagine, that the greatest comeback in playoff history can take, how then do you stay focused now on the task at hand?
It was 48 hours ago. It was a great moment, but that was Sunday, and we have an opportunity to play again on our home floor for the next couple of games. Things like that, it breeds confidence, and so now I feel like, guys would say if we can come back down 30, if we give ourselves an opportunity from the start of this basketball game, we have an opportunity to win. So I think that's the biggest takeaway we can get from that.
They're playing a gimmick defense, which has been working, top blocking everything on the perimeter. So guys not even looking at the three-point line. They're just forcing guys inside the three-point line. So for us, when I get the ball in my spots, I got a pest, Patrick Beverly, who was up underneath me. Well, I could definitely shoot over top and score every time if it's a one-on-one situation. But we got a guy that's dropping and helping, and then we got another guy that's just sitting on me, waiting for me to dribble the basketball. If I put the basketball on the floor, I can probably make 43% of my shots if I shoot them like that. But that's not really going to do nothing for us with the outcome of the game, because we got a nice flow. Everybody touching the rock, everybody shooting and scoring. So then this series is kind of weird because, when the guy is that small, you got the advantage. But, the refs see, we hear David and Goliath a lot growing up, so that story is pretty much prominent in people's minds. So when you put that out there on the court against me, then the ref's gonna give him a little bit more. So when he run up on me like a pit bull, grab me, hold me, I don't mind it. That's how he make his money. That's how he feed his family. But if I throw something back, then let us play. I'm not gonna get in the way of the game because, I want to have a little back and forth with Patrick Beverly. I'm Kevin Durant. You know who I am. Y'all know who I am.
This Kevin Durant versus Patrick Beverly thing is fascinating. KD apologized for getting ejected in Game 1, and after Game 2 talked about not taking the bait and getting too involved with Beverly. Is Patrick Beverly in his head, and how does this play out moving forward?
I think this is just what Patrick Beverly does. It's absolutely horrible when you're playing against him, but when you watch him play, I love it. I think the Clippers are now gaining a lot of the hearts of everybody watching. They play with so much passion. He fires their team up. They're playing with house money. Nobody expected them to win a game. And now everyone's saying, well, they may win 2. They may win 3. So Patrick Beverly is their leader, both on and off the court. And if he wasn't like this, it would send a message to his guys.
What should Kevin Durant do tonight? How should he approach it?
Yeah, me and Grant was just saying, be more aggressive. I think one of the things that KD said in that interview that I found interesting is he said, if I get to my spots, I think he has to work a little bit harder to get to his spots, like the elbows, pinch post, the areas that he likes to operate in, because he does have a huge height advantage over him. All you got to do is turn and shoot. But Pat Bev is right up in his lap, to what Channing said earlier. Kind of like I used to play Dirk. You want to get up in him, take away his airspace. Mm-hmm. That's what Bev is doing to KD right now.
Well, he scored in Game 2. He's going to score whenever he's on the floor, but he also had 9 turnovers in that game, which is obviously a huge problem for the Warriors in general. And yet, with all that stuff happening, the comeback and that battle and everything, it ultimately came down, as so many games do, to who's going to make a shot and who's going to miss a shot. Rookie made a shot. Arguably the greatest shooter in NBA history missed a shot, and that ultimately decided it in the last minute.
Go figure. Go figure it would go that way, and certainly tip your hat to Landry Shamet for stepping up and taking a big shot. But also the trust that Doc Rivers has, having him on the floor, his teammates finding him. A little poor execution rotation-wise defensively, although Draymond Green does get out and closes out. But the rookie from Wichita State stepped up big, and look, time and time again we've seen Steph Curry hit big shots, has the rookie on him, and obviously unable to convert here at the end of the game. And so, that's the way it goes down the stretch. When you're on the road, you want to give yourself a chance. Yeah. LA executed, but the bottom line is Golden State did a poor job of closing out this game.
Right.
Never should have been in this situation. At this point, too, the momentum. Yeah. Now a team starts feeling good about themselves, coming back from a big comeback like that. So, obviously, tip your hat to LA. They got to be ready and focused there for Game 3 because you're going to get a reaction from Golden State. And back to just one other thing about the Kevin Durant situation. It's kind of like back in the day against Gary Payton. Mm-hmm. You can't play that game. Gary Payton's better at playing that game
than you are.
Right. So don't try to engage with him and get into all of that. just be aggressive. Look to assert yourself. Don't be passive. You know, he's got to take more shots, in my opinion. I don't care if you miss all your shots. At least you're being aggressive, attacking, being at your best. But it's almost like he's on his heels now, and he's allowed, as we were talking, how Beverly to get into his head. And so it'll be interesting, and I want to see how Durant comes out from the jump here in Game 3.
We also heard Steve Kerr say after the game that his team just stopped playing in the third quarter when they had that lead, and he's been exasperated in the past with his team for this kind of stuff. Bigger problem moving forward in the playoffs for the Warriors, the loss of Boogie Cousins or the complacency that has kind of been a problem for this team the last 2 seasons at times.
Yeah, I think being locked in. I think obviously losing Boogie's a big deal because he's so dynamic and go inside and outside and puts pressure on the defense in a way that they haven't had in recent years. But they're also averaging 21.5 turnovers a game, which is a very high number. And it puts the Clippers in transition. As we know, they're an up-tempo type of team. You get Lou Williams on the break, Harrell running the floor, the rest of those guys, Gallo and them. In transition, they're a dangerous team. I think they got to take care of the ball, get more locked in. But to Grant's point, I'm really interested to see how KD comes out and his response to this. And also, one more thing, I also think Klay Thompson needs to get more shots as well. I think he's only averaging 15, 14 points a game. Get him going a little bit too in this series.
You know, at their worst, which is still pretty good, turnovers are the Warriors' biggest problem. They're their Achilles heel. Can they continue with this rate and reach the finals?
No, I also think people took for granted that the Clippers are a good matchup for the Warriors right now. I think especially without DeMarcus Cousins, that huge post presence, right? You would say, here, DeMarcus, get us a basket. They're going on a run. Make a good pass. Get this double team. Let's establish and set the pace of the game from us. Now they're playing Bogut, who's still getting used to that starting minutes. I think Kevin Looney is like plus 15. So you may think about putting Looney in there, who's able to keep up, who's able to, just go with the pace of the game. But the Clippers, they play almost the same style as Golden State, just a little bit tougher, a little bit more grinded, and all these turnovers are coming from the pressure that Patrick Beverly and all them are putting on the Warriors.
Yeah, Looney will be a factor moving forward. He had a postseason career high, 19 on 6 for 6 shooting in Game 2. Well, speaking of heroic late performances, Jamal Murray joined the postseason when it counted late in Game 2. We'll look ahead to tonight's Game 3 between the Nuggets and Spurs. Ben Simmons getting ready to go tonight for the 76ers. He's in the half court right now. Some would say that makes him an average player.
Ooh.
Even in warm-ups.
Ooh. That's fire.
Some have said that.
Bang, bang. That's friendly.
Sixers disagree. Game 3 coming up tonight on TNT. Greg Anthony is standing by in Brooklyn to call Game 3 on TNT. GA, when the grievances become public the way they have in this series over the last couple of days, how will it affect things on the court tonight, including how the referees might approach this game?
Well, I think this is going to be a pretty physical game, as physical as we'll see in the modern NBA. I felt like Philly came out and punched Brooklyn in the mouth, and they didn't handle it well, especially in that third quarter. But I think you'll see Brooklyn try to respond. The question, though, is Brooklyn's not a physical team by nature. They're a bit more of a skill team. They like to get up and down. So I don't think they want to overplay their hand and get out of character. But I do think this game, in a lot of ways, I think is a must-win. Because if you're Philly, you don't want to give a young Nets team confidence that they could actually win the series. And if they come out and win Game 3, that's what happens. And if you're Brooklyn, this is an opportunity for you to keep home court and put that pressure on Philly. Everybody knows all the speculations about whether or not Brett Brown's going to be back, what personnel are coming back as well when you look at Philly. So this is a monumental game for the Sixers here on the road.
Greg, this is Grant. Hey, I just want to know, obviously playoffs all about adjustments. And I thought in Game 2, Philly did a good job on D'Angelo Russell. They really harassed him. They even at times put Ben Simmons on him, give him a different look with their length. Any talk with the Brooklyn coaching staff and the folks there just about what adjustments they may make to get D'Angelo Russell going like he did in Game 1?
Grant, I think it's a great point. I think they got a little bogged down. They got too much into the one-on-one play. If you look at the numbers, they had 27 assists in Game 1 on 40% shooting. That's an amazing number when you look at how poorly they shot the ball. Game 2, they shot 47%, but they only had 20 assists. So that tells you that they were much more ISO-oriented, which I think bodes well for Philly. Philly's long. They're not the quickest team. And so if you play more ISO basketball against them and you play later in the shot clock, their size becomes an advantage. Brooklyn's a team, a fifth of their points come the first 5 seconds of the shot clock. And then over half their points come in the pick and roll. So I think you're going to look for them to play faster, and you're going to look for them to be more involved in that pick and roll game, because that's been their recipe for success against the Sixers.
Hey, Greg, this is Channing Frye. If you are Philly, right, how do you put pressure on Brooklyn to get the ball in the post? Have they talked about feeding Embiid more early and often?
Yes, Channing, that's a great point. And listen, they are just a markedly different team when Joel Embiid is engaged early and often. And listen, he's their best player. They have to play through him inside out. Game 1, he settled, I thought, a lot more for perimeter shots. Didn't have 2 feet in the paint enough. That wasn't the case in Game 2, and I think you're going to see more of that. The reality is Brooklyn does not have an answer for Joel Embiid unless he bails them out by settling for threes and jump shots. When he makes up his mind, I'm going to play inside out, I think Philly becomes a much more dangerous team offensively and creates far more problems for the Nets.
Hey, Jay, what's up? It's Booz. How you doing, man?
What's up, Big Booz?
Doing good. Hey, question about Brooklyn. Who do you think is going to be the X factor for them to come in, give those starters a big lift, a boost to help them get this Game 3 win?
You know, they typically do it by committee off their bench, but a guy I'm looking at who's a barometer for me is Joe Harris. I think he's a guy, because of his ability to shoot it, that if he's having an impact on the game, their offense seems to flow better. So I'm going to be watching him early. Listen, their strength is their bench, but I do think they need to make a statement early in the game, and oftentimes the three-point shot has become the momentum shot. Spencer Dinwiddie's going to have to play well coming off the bench, but in that starting 5, someone other than D'Angelo Russell has to have an impact, and oftentimes shooting plays a pivotal role, and I think Harris is a guy that somehow, some ways got to get going, much like we saw with J.J. Redick in Game 2.
Greg Anthony with us from Brooklyn and rocking the turtleneck tonight ahead of Game 3 on TNT.
It's cold here. It's cold in
With
Brooklyn.
that Carolina blue jacket, too. We see you. We see you. With that Carolina blue jacket, we see you.
That's not true. Georgetown got gray and blue in it, too, though.
A lot of folks reading into a lot of signals from Greg Anthony. Ben Simmons, fairly pedestrian by his standards in Game 1. A triple-double in the Game 2 route. And perhaps not coincidentally, Jared Dudley spent about 20 possessions guarding him in Game 1, giving up just 2 points, while Dudley missed Game 2 with a calf injury. And, of course, as you know by now, he said between games that Simmons is, quote, an average player in the half court, great in transition. So what can the Nets do defensively to make that so tonight?
Well, Jared Dudley talks a lot, but there's some truth in the sense that he is great in transition. So transition defense is a must. Brooklyn, you got to get back. You got to form a wall. Simmons is so good and he's so long. Once he gets his foot in the paint, consider it a layup. So, Matt, let's say you're coming out and guarding me here. Obviously, I'm not a shooter. You don't want him to just get a full head of steam coming downhill. So a little, staying close, but not too close. But certainly backing up as Simmons goes. And then the defenders obviously want to be close enough. Philly's not a great three-point shooting team. So you can form a wall. I like to say there should be 5 sets of eyeballs on Simmons when he has the ball and he's going downhill. And there's enough time as he's going. There's no lanes there. You could still get out to a shooter if he passes out to a shooter. So forming that wall, getting back, making sure he doesn't get into the paint. Because once he gets in the paint, one dribble in the paint, and he's so long, and he can get to the rim with ease.
What's the appropriate amount of space for a guy like that? You want to encourage him to shoot if you can, but you don't want to let him get ahead of steam.
I think you have to play the game. I think you have to stop his momentum, especially in transition, but put your toes on a three-point line and send him to the worst shooter. J.J. Redick is generally going to be on this side. You want to send him this way because Joel Embiid is going to be on this end. If you send him to his right hand, you have lesser shooters on this side. You have Jimmy and Tobias. I think they're great, but they're not generally three-point shooters like that. Let's say he does beat you. Now you have your big man, Jared Allen, and people that drop back and box out Embiid on a short, weak side.
Oh, well said. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you want a person to shoot jump shots. but also have the wall so he can't get in the lane. Make other guys beat you, which is what you want to do. You don't want to have him getting layups and dunks in transition and being able to feed everybody else.
And one other thing, too. Once he's out of transition in the half court, I play way off him.
Oh, way off.
Embarrass him into shooting the basketball.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what? He has the ball up top. I'd be right there in the paint. Make him shoot it. Make him beat you from outside.
He shot 21% from mid-range during the regular season. So there's something to
That's
that
21%
strategy.
better than me right now.
And one more thing, he can't make free throws.
There's that factor as well. More coming up here. Lou Williams
Swing.
and his benchmate Montrezl Harrell were huge in the Game 2 comeback against Golden State. Find out how their chemistry predates their time with the Clippers next.
Jacket's too tight, man. European cut.